Hi, welcome. My name is Kubeir. I am an ICCRC and now CICC licensed immigration consultant. And today, 31st of December, we are finally here to the end of this particular year. I don't know how to sort of start by saying that was this year good, was this year bad, and all those things that usually you would do in a synopsis of a particular year or to summarize a particular year. I'm sure it was a spectacular year for a lot of people out there, and it did not really, go down very well with plenty of you out there. But my job today is to basically summarize what happened in the field of Canadian immigration in this whole year of 2021, and basically also take a sneak peek or take a look into what I think, my personal opinion, and basically see what 2022 may have in store for us. And that's what we're going to do today. So let's get started with that. As we normally do, quote of the week: the new year is a painting not yet painted, a path not yet stepped on, a wing not yet taken off. Things haven't happened as yet. Before the clock strikes 12, remember that you are blessed with the ability to reshape your life, said Mehmet Murat Ildan. Well, very, very wise saying. I mean, I don't think anybody would disagree with something of this. And yes, we are absolutely at the cusp of the new year, and I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful new year going ahead. And just keep in mind that the new year is a book that you haven't yet penned your thoughts down on, and this is your opportunity to make your story as it goes. Canadian Immigration Annual Review is what we're going to call today's session as. Let's just get rid of this. Yeah. And today the topics of discussion are basically largely going to be two: Canadian immigration as in the highlights of what has happened in 2021, and looking ahead 2022, how does that look like? We are going to quickly run through different things that have happened in this particular year so that you have a bit of a brief, I'm sure a lot of you would not want to think about these, but these are the numbers that we need to go with anyways, right? So prior to the pandemic, Canada had set a goal of welcoming 341,000 new migrants, and that was in 2020. And they only managed to achieve 184,000 people last year. And that basically meant that there was a target shot of 46%. And in 2021, their target was for 400,000. And, they did actually manage to achieve this. The way the factors look like, 30% of this target that they achieved this year was from people who came from outside Canada, while 70% of these numbers that they achieved was for people who were already inside Canada. So basically, largely international students, foreign workers who were already inside Canada, they made the bulk of the number that Canada achieved its target with. Going forward, Canada is looking to welcome 411,000 new migrants in 2022 and 421,000 new migrants in 2023. We expect that the new immigration targets and quotas and plans will be announced by the end of February by the new immigration minister. So this was the immigration review for 2021. They obviously faced difficult circumstances. I mean, with all these COVID situations, the pandemic situations, the shutdowns, the lockdowns, the constantly changing circumstances around the world. COPR holders were earlier waiting in the limbo. They did not know when they would be able to come to Canada. They had issued COPRs, but they were not able to travel. The COVID cases levels were high. Obviously, in Canada, around the world, vaccinations was just about beginning, and the lockdowns were all over the place. IRCC basically then allowed all COPR holders to come to Canada, and that was in the month of June. From the month of September onwards, they even allowed people who were coming to Canada for non-discretionary purposes. That allowed a lot of people to start reapplying for their visit visas. But what they did was in 2020, IRCC had closed the year by conducting its lowest express entry draw for the all program draw for the federal skilled worker draws. And that was on the 23rd of December with a score of 468, which was also the lowest score for that year for the all program draw. And then when they started 2021, the focus switched entirely only onto CC specific and PNP specific draws, whereby 90% of these candidates were living in Canada. And these were the people whose applications were processed in express entry. Of course, there were also these TR to PR pathway that they launched in the year 2021. They then held the most exceptional draws since 2015. We are saying 2015 because that's when express entry actually was started. That is when express entry actually was launched. On the 13th of February, they invited 27,332 express entry candidates, but this was Canadian experience class only, and the lowest ever score of 75, only 75. In May, what they did was, as I said, they launched this new TR to PR, temporary residence to permanent resident pathway, again, focusing primarily on the international students in Canada, on the essential workers and the health workers who are currently in Canada. Their contribution was acknowledged, and therefore they identified this pathway, which would make it so much more easier for so many of these people who otherwise may have found it difficult or may have not found an opportunity to get through or did not have a clear pathway. In June, IRCC ramped up its processing capacity, and they started increasing the number of people they were finalizing and they were landing per month. One thing that also led to this happening was their virtual landing process. Earlier, they were, still using either the paper stamping, so the people had to send their passports for stamping, or because of COVID, they resorted to the telephone landing, whereby they would call you, and once they confirm that you're in Canada, then they would issue a COPR, eventually coming to a more digitized format, which is even applicable as of today, which was the virtual landing process. And this seems to be working quite well. Finally, Canada broke the record for the PR landings in a year and has landed 401,000 new permanent residents. And this is for the second time since the country has been founded in 1867. And the goal was achieved. And this is a bit of a caveat, right? The goal was achieved by focusing on transitioning temporary residents into permanent residents, because owing to this pandemic, owing to all these challenges, lockdowns, travel restrictions, etc., and the fact that they were unable to achieve their target in 2020, identifying this big population of people who were in Canada but who were not permanent residents, they then made great sense to sort of, give them a transition or give them a pathway to permanent residence, and therefore they managed to also achieve their target. IRCC's strategy to achieve its goal obviously came at a cost, right? Now, the cost has been that, so in order to concentrate only on people in Canada, only on CC applications, only on TR to PR applications, they had to obviously move or reassign its resources so that these applications that they were, or rather these invitations that they were issuing, and that these applications that they were targeting, that they were processed quickly and fast enough. Well, look at a comparison, right? A CAC application gets processed in 45 days. An FSW who's outland and who obviously at this point of time is simply waiting from 2018, probably is waiting for now almost 3 years and still counting. And look at the contrast, 45 days versus 2 years, 3 years for a lot of people waiting out there. So this was the price that people had to pay for, so that IRCC could achieve its target for the most, or rather, landed immigrants in Canada for this year. The backlog has grown to 1.8 million, and these are not the number of applications that it says here. I'm sorry about that. It's not the number of applications, it's the number of people. But if you see that, even if you calculate these number of people and call them the number of applications, which is fine, because each person could sort of count themselves as an applicant. So this is 1.8 million people and counting who have been affected by this strategy that IRCC adopted in order to finalize their or rather to achieve their quota or their target for 2021. And of this 1.8 million, nearly 750 to 800,000 now are temporary residents, or rather these are the temporary residence applications, and that would include your visit visas, it would include your work permits, spouse open sponsorship, spouse open work permit applications, super visas. Combination of all that, it is almost touching 800,000 now, and it's still looking very grim at this point of time. But on the other hand, the number of applications which were for permanent residents is also touching anywhere in the range of now 400 to 500,000 applications, or people rather, and citizenship applications, there are nearly 300,000. So earlier you would be able to get your citizenship application process within a year. As of this time, it is now over 2 years and counting. So this was the biggest price everybody had to pay in order for them to achieve their target. COPR holders and applicants for permanent residence are waiting longer than usual, of course, and the In Canada strategy has seen the labor force growth lessen, which has contributed to some of the highest job vacancies levels in Canadian history. Well, obviously, right? I mean, if you are all that you have done is if you have transitioned the temporary residents into permanent residents, which basically means the number of people inside the country have remained the same, the numbers have remained the same, and you haven't allowed the new workers, the temporary workers to come into the country, you haven't allowed the new permanent residents to come into the country, what were you expecting? So what that has done is that has grown the number of vacancies, the job vacancies significantly. And IRCC remains constrained even today by many circumstances. The new variant Omicron is now creating havoc again. The number of cases across the country are rising. Yesterday, Quebec placed further curfews and lockdowns in the province. Ontario already has an ongoing restriction and lockdown, not exactly a lockdown, but ongoing restrictions in place. Similarly, other provinces of Manitoba, British Columbia, Saskatchewan, Alberta are also placing some or the other sort of restrictions so that they can in some way control the spread. But I mean, I'm not sure how successful that's going to be, because this one looks like a real difficult one to control. Increasing COVID case counts and the government lockdown measures in Canada, abroad, and the Canadian government's travel policies obviously created more constraints for IRCC to achieve the targets that they wanted to. And Canadian government's decision earlier this year to ban flights from different countries, I'm sure people in India would remember that the flight ban from India lasted almost 5 months, and the direct flights were all banned out, and you couldn't fly directly to Canada, and that sort of kicked up all the flight prices, the air ticket prices. Not only did it create problem for IRCC, because obviously they were trying to achieve their targets, it created much bigger challenges and problems for people out there. But that is also something that really happened, and that is now again that we all faced and survived through, thankfully. IRCC has worked to keep the immigration system functioning. Now, in January, for example, it announced a policy allowing postgraduate work permit holders to apply for a one-time extension to get an open work permit. And this year in fall, they also invited 30,000 sponsors who could then submit their applications for their parents, grandparents. Now, while IRCC was struggling to meet its targets, managing all these different things, they obviously also had a lot of other things happening. For example, the international students, which obviously is a multi-billion-dollar industry in Canada. At the last count, it's nearly $25 billion industry in Canada. So international students were something that they were always at a priority level. And they had to sort of keep processing their applications. Earlier, they did a two-step process where they were giving approval in principle, and the final approval, that sort of created a lot of issues. Then the international students were allowed to come into Canada under the essential category. Their student study permits were not being processed in time. They had problems with that. Then they announced that the international students who were already in Canada, because they were losing jobs, they were being laid off, their work permits were expiring, so they gave a blanket policy of extending the postgraduate work permits for the international students who are already in Canada, and that was applicable until I think 27th of July. And those international students could then extend their postgraduate work permit, which is otherwise only a once in a lifetime thing. And in 2020, and they allowed people to file their expressions of interest for the parents, grandparents sponsorship. They invited only 10,000 sponsors in the 2020, and the same people who had created their expressions of interest from the same pool, 30,000 additional sponsors were allowed to, sponsors were allowed sort of given invitations so that they could submit the parents, grandparents. So these are all additional applications. These are all additional processes that came into play. Mind you, they were all throughout the year while the lockdowns were in place, while the travel restrictions were in place, and they had this new thing called authorization to travel, whereby only close family members, only people who had reasons to show that they were coming to Canada for non-discretionary travel, they would be able to come. So they had to issue these travel authorizations. They were also this pre-18th March, if you remember, 2020, COPRs which were issued before the 18th of March. So COPRs that were issued before the 18th of March, they could travel. Post 18th March could not travel. So those COPRs expired, and then those had to be renewed. Obviously, during the course of time, people who did get COPRs at a later date, their COPRs also expired. They then had to be extended. So IRCC had a lot going on and these were all new processes which they had to create, which they had to, manage and tackle while there wasn't much additional resources coming. They didn't have additional resources. There were no additional staff to handle all these extra activities. Not to forget the TR to PR applications that they started. So you can imagine with all these additional workload, where were the people going to come from to handle this? So it was understood that they're going to put the outland applications, the federal skilled worker applications, the people who were not in Canada, they were considered at this point of time low priority because they could not come to Canada, they could not travel, there were travel restrictions at that point of time. And they reassigned not only the people from those, when I'm saying reassigned, I'm talking about the visa officers and people who are handling these applications. Those were reassigned to handle TR to PR, CEC applications, but also people who were otherwise, the visa officers who were otherwise handling the visit visa applications, spouse open work permit applications, work permit applications, all the temporary residence applications. They were also reassigned to handle the CEC applications, the PNP applications, as well as the TR to PR, so that these numbers could be processed faster, so that IRCC could achieve its target. So you can see how this created all this. And because they achieved the target and announced that only on the 23rd of December, I guess a lot of them would be breathing a sigh of relief, and as you would expect, most of them would be reassigned back to their original positions, original tasks, so that they can now get on with what they would ideally otherwise be working on. So that's what happened with all the processes. Obviously, Canada also got its new immigration minister. Sean Fraser, who is a lawyer from Nova Scotia, was appointed as the new immigration minister. And going further, in the month of November, Prime Minister Trudeau then also issued the mandate letter, which is a norm with the government, whereby most of the, all the departments, all the ministries are issued a priority or an objective letter, whereby the ministers then have a pathway or have a well-defined priority that has been assigned by their party leadership, by the government leadership, to tell them, okay, this is the path that you need to take. So similarly, Sean Fraser also has a mandate letter. The immigration minister also has a mandate letter, whereby 13 different points were identified as priority. Amongst this, as we can see here, let's get this. Amongst this, you would have he would have to prioritize higher immigration levels. So we can expect that in February, when the new immigration plans and quotas are announced, you can see that numbers being kicked up. We expected I mean, for 2022, it's 411,000. For 2023, it's 421. We now wait to see what will 424 targets look like. I expect to see in the range of 435 to 440 kind of a number there. And not only that, there is also going to be a big priority on reducing the processing times, or rather improving the application processing times. Now, what has happened over there is, in tandem with the mandate letter, a day earlier, the Canada's finance minister came out and announced that they were going to allocate $85 million specifically to reduce this application backlog. Obviously, Canada has been getting a lot of bad press. I mean, if you see the Twitter accounts, it goes bonkers with so many people who have been expressing their anger and their frustration. I mean, every single day, basically. But yeah, I'm sure people in the know are aware. The think tank is aware, because if you have seen any of the internal memos that we have shared through our videos before, you would see that Canada was always aware that they would get a lot of negative press, a lot of bad press, and a lot of negative feedback from people. But the idea was to achieve the target. So now that has happened. And the backlash basically is going, I mean, it continues, and they are now aware that they have more than 1.8 million people who have been affected by the backlogs. So $85 million has been assigned as a one-time budget allocation to address this backlogs. Not only that, the mandate letter, the first priority on the mandate letter very clearly indicates that the priority is to reduce, or rather improve the processing times so that it can go back to the pre-pandemic levels. Now, that's going to take some time to happen. Now, from our understanding of the whole process, the way it is working, we also realize what they are doing now is that while they're going to be handling the backlogs, they will also continue handling the new applications that they are receiving. So it's not like that the new applications will go to the back of the queue and they will first have to wait all the applications filed earlier to be processed. No. What they're doing instead is, while they are clearing the backlogs, they will also clear the new applications so that they can move faster towards maintaining the pre-pandemic levels. I know. It will sound very, very unfair to people who have been waiting for such a long time, but that is the way that we understand that they are going towards. Similarly, that's what happened with the visit visa applications and some of the TRV applications, whereby they have indicated that people who have already applied and are waiting for more than a year, their applications will get processed. But in the meantime, if you have a visit visa of a close family member who needs to come to Canada for an urgent basis, post the 7th of September, they started accepting applications into the new portal, whereby those applications are processed so fast. I mean, we have heard cases where people got an approval within 3 days and are now on an average seeing about 2 months of processing time. So you see what's happening? They're processing these new applications faster, whereas also processing the old ones, but a bit slowly. Okay, what else was there? So this is what the mandate letter basically said. As I said, 13 priorities, of which application processing times to improve the processing times was definitely a priority. Bringing families together, that is another big priority. And there is also an indication that there could be further changes coming to the express entry system, whereby there is a provision that they could get more international students and international foreign workers who are currently in Canada and have more pathways for them, so that they could have a pathway for permanent residence. So all these form the priorities in the mandate. In other news, job vacancies have reached a record high in Q3 2021, in the third quarter of 2021. According to the new Statistics Canada report, Canada had an all-time high of 912,600 job vacancies, which is quite large, almost touching 1 million vacancies. And the large increase in the vacancies was mainly in Saskatchewan, followed by Quebec and Ontario. Healthcare and social assistance are also facing significant labor force pressure. There were more than 118,000 vacancies in those segments as well. Well, Nova Scotia for the first time has surpassed a population of 1 million, which is again a great news. You see, all these provinces through their PNP programs, the fundamental criteria is so that they can see an increase in the numbers. And as and how they are developing new PNP streams, the criteria has always been to sort of retain the people, because a lot of people, what they do is they will come to Canada, they will come to the province that, or may not sometimes come to the province that they got their PNP through, and then they would leave that province and go to provinces like Ontario and British Columbia, mainly Toronto and Vancouver, because that's where they want to go, which leaves a lot of these provinces high and dry, because, as I said, the fundamental of a PNP program is to increase the population of those provinces. Anyways, Nova Scotia managed to surpass the population of 1 million, which is a big milestone for them. And most immigrants to Nova Scotia came from India, of course, China, of course, the Philippines, yes, Korea, and the United Kingdom. The province's current immigration retention rate at this point of time is 71%, which is again quite good. What Canada has also done, and actually this doesn't form a part of our yearly review, but we've added it here because it's a newer part of a new announcement which happened last week, that the medical exam exemption for immigrants or applicants inside Canada, if you've already completed your medicals within the last 5 years, you do not need to retake medicals. Simply provide your old medical report with a letter of explanation indicating this public policy, and there is a good possibility you may not need to retake another medicals. Okay, so that is something. So this exemption, which was to expire at the end of December, has been extended until the 31st of March 2022. Well, there are so many of you now who are watching this, or obviously not watching, but celebrating 2022. I wish you a very happy New Year, and all prayers and all hopes to looking forward to a much more promising, much more joyous 2022, so that all your dreams can come true. People who are watching us, who are connecting with us from subcontinent, you would be celebrating your New Year very soon. So yeah, wishing you and everybody who's already come into the New Year, wishing all of you as well a very happy New Year. Connect with us on social media: Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, of course, and that sort of is the end of this. Yes, of course, we have the second segment of today's video to go forward with, and that is sneak peek, or looking into the crystal ball and seeing what does 2022 have in store for us. If you're still here, then I would request you to hit a Hulk smash on the like button so we can see some like numbers going up, because if you like the video, what happens is that it goes out to more people who can then find the content which may be of help to them, which may be of some assistance to them in their application and or in their journey as well. While you're also here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, which should be here, and yeah, hit on that subscribe button so you then get notifications of all the future videos that we post out. Attitude of gratitude, that would always take us a long way through. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of my journey on this in this time, and I wish you all the best. Happy New Year, and I'll see you in the new year.